welcome in, Fools, to episode 38 of the Fantasy Foolz Podcast. And we have a lot of stuff to go over today in episode 38. A lot of good football matches, a lot of injuries. We'll get there. But Jordan, why don't you kick us off with some news around the league?
It has been a crazy day, a crazy week, lots going on. First, we've got Aiden O'Connell. He's going to be starting over Minshew in Las Vegas. On top of we like Minshew mania around here. Now, speaking of the Las Vegas Raiders, they have finalized a trade. Devontae is now a New York Jet. He even surprised on Aaron Rodgers Tuesday, just happened to be with Aaron Rodgers when he called in. Woo! Check it out if you had a chance. We'll get into how that's going to affect fantasy teams moving forward, probably next episode, so keep listening. Now, number 3, another major trade. We got Amari Cooper going to the Bills. That's huge.
Just wild with the trades today.
And also, you got a vet who's now can mentor Keon Coleman. Now, the Bills, after trading for Amari Cooper, ended up releasing MVS, which... honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs scoop him up for a year. But
oh my God, no!
Yeah, he's been in that system. Don't be surprised if he just gets a 1-year contract with the Chiefs. Another major trade: Cam Akers traded to the Vikings. Okay, so now Aaron Jones has a little more competition. It was becoming more and more clear he was not a part of that backfield.
I don't think that was competition. I don't think that's competition for Aaron Jones. I think what that is in case Aaron Jones goes down again, they have someone who's comparable.
Yeah. Well, not competition, but like he's going to share the backfield more.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be Ty. It's going to be Ty Chandler if Jones misses, but I think this is the backup play. Like Mike mentioned, if Jones gets injured again, they need that guy who can get him some yards or first downs. That's what
who can fill the same role.
Right.
The next move, not a trade here, but a change in who is a starter. We've got Russell Wilson, who's going to be practicing with the first team this week in terms of the Steelers, and he's expected to be the starter this coming weekend. It's being talked that Justin Fields has already been talked to, and I think the main reason is just because they want to get the ball to George Pickens and their receivers more, and Russ is a better thrower. We'll see, though. Now, this is some huge news that I'm pretty pumped for. We got 2 guys who are possibly making their returns in Week 7 or Week 8, TJ Hawkinson and Nick Chubb. Both coming off, I believe, tearing their ACL. Reports have been really good about both of them. TJ Hawkinson specifically. So if you have him on your team, get excited because the wait might be over. Now, someone else, Rashee Rice, it's been confirmed he's out 10 to 12 months.
Yeah, that's disappointing, especially because he was like one of those guys I targeted in like most of my drafts. I was successful out of 7 leagues. I think I got him in like 3, so that really kind of hurt me. A couple of dynasties, but
I took him in 0.
The one person I did really like that you brought up, the Devontae trade. I loved how he was showing up on McAfee, and like he was at Aaron Rodgers' house already. Like it's Tuesday. He was just traded there, which is crazy. But guess what? Talk about injured players. His hamstring seemed mighty fine when he was at Aaron Rodgers' house. I'm just saying. He said he felt great, but other people who don't feel great. We're going to roll into injuries. And this week, unfortunately, we had a bunch of more relevant people go down. Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., both down with concussions. So they're going to be week to week. Probably going to miss at least a game. Jerome Ford, even though with Nick Chubb on the cusp of coming back, he still was somewhat relevant. He pulled a hammy week to week as well. Travis Etienne, he was week to week with another hammy. Raheed Shaheed, this one we're not sure about. All we know is that it's a knee injury, and the coaches are saying it might be quote-unquote concerning. Definitely monitor Raheem Shaheed, even though he was having such a good year. So it's really disappointing to see him go down like that. Another hamstring with Dallas Goedert. God, those hammies, man, they kind of hurt you for, honestly, 3 to 5 weeks. I mean, it just can't really be explosive. Some other, really just leg injuries I'm noticing here. You guys noticed the Quentin Johnston and Aiden Hutchinson, mostly Aiden Hutchinson leg injuries.
Yeah.
Quentin Johnson is Quentin Johnson. I mean, it is what it is. But Aiden Hutchinson, that's going to be devastating for the Detroit defenses there.
I agree.
Another defensive player that went down that's going to really, really hurt their fantasy defenses and really, really help your offensive players who play against them, Patrick Surtain. He went down with a concussion as well. Week to week, next couple of weeks, Denver might be a little bit more exposed. The last relevant injury I think we have really is Jordan Mason. He had a shoulder injury, but he's day-to-day. I don't expect him to lose much time. Before we roll into our trifecta, though, let's go over the notable returns. Michael Pittman, I thought he was on IR. It was all pretty much committed. He was on IR. He even said after he played that he might still be going on IR. I think it depends on if Anthony Richardson is throwing him the ball. That's my opinion. But,
yeah.
Other guys who came back, Evan Engram, Christian Watson, Joe Mixon, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. So welcome back, both wide receivers for the Eagles. Devon Vele, Tyler's favorite guy who he traded Downs for. Jalen Warren and Xavier Legette, all back from injury.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for going over those noble turns and injuries. Now we're going to move into our weekly trifecta, starting off with my surprise of the week, and it is none other than Sean Tucker of the Buccaneers. 14 rushing attempts for 136 yards with a touchdown, 3 receptions with 3 attempts for 56 yards and a touchdown. I definitely thought Bucky Irving was going to see all of this momentum, but he ended up 9.71 yards per carry. He's a young guy. I think this is a guy that Rachaad White, I'm going to go with you guys finally. He's probably on the way out. So this is definitely a player who in your leagues I would definitely look because he looked better than Bucky Irving in this case.
I mean, I thought he looked absolutely great. I mean, I think both of them really did. Bucky Irving was still the starter. Let's not be questioning that. He still had more snaps. He still played in the early downs. And then Sean Tucker kind of just exploded when he came in afterwards. So I'm not worried. But, yeah, Rachaad White, I am getting worried, especially when the contracts are coming out. My surprise of the week, though, Zay Flowers. Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan. You had something to say?
No, I was going to say Todd Bowles did say, I'm not opposed to having a 3-headed monster. So
absolutely.
I do wonder, do you guys think this might be a backfield that becomes like the Patriots were always under Bill? It's almost like none of the RBs were fantasy relevant because they were all used. Do you think it has potential to get there?
I think the rest of this year, maybe. I think Rachaad White will be on his way out, and it will be these two going forward.
I agree.
So going into my surprise of the week, like I already said, it's Zay Flowers. Now, if you guys listen to the podcast, which judging by our numbers, you do not,
Hey, nobody.
The consensus around here is we don't like the pass catchers. And Dan, thank you very much, Dan. We really appreciate you. Shout out to Dan. Honestly, we are not a big receiving. We don't really love the pass catchers here, honestly, for the Baltimore Ravens. But Zay Flowers has been incredibly consistent, and he had a really good week this week. 9 receptions, 9 targets, 132 yards. He put up astounding numbers, and over the last 3 games he's had over 8 targets a game on average. I gotta say, maybe I gotta be a little bit higher on Zay Flowers.
Maybe I don't like
it. It's tough to trust him, but the Ravens are a high scoring team, and I think that other teams know that they have to go in and score high to beat the Ravens. So eventually Lamar's got to do some deep passing. So, and I like Zay. But moving on to my surprise of the week, Keenan Allen. I'll keep it short and sweet. He's old and he's been slow to get going. But maybe this is a good sign for things to come for the Bears and Caleb Williams. He hasn't had more than 5 fantasy points until this week. And then he had 18.9. That came out of nowhere. So that's pretty awesome.
I just want to say something real quick. I think that's unfair to say for Keenan Allen because this is a guy who's been a star in this league for so long, came into a new offense and got hurt in week 1 and was recovering and coming back from it all the way until this week. I don't think this is going to be a surprise. I think this is going to be going forward.
But did you go into week 6
not
being
2 touchdowns?
Yeah, did you go into week 6 being like Keenan Allen's going to come back and score 2 touchdowns this week?
Did I go into week 6 thinking that? No. But did I think that Keenan Allen was going to be Keenan Allen in this offense by the middle of the season? Yes, I did.
Yeah. Moving on to the consistent of the week. My consistent, I'm going a little bit different this time, and that's Brandon Aubrey, the Dallas Cowboys kicker, number 1 kicker overall, 30th ranked overall in fantasy right now against the Detroit Lions. He was 3 for 3 on field goals made. One was between 30 and 39, 40 and 49, another 50 plus, one of each. So if you have those settings for kickers in your fantasy leagues, I mean, he is getting you points, and in some cases for me, he's helping me win weeks, and he's done it every week, which is great. I mean, 22, 18, 12, 11, 9, 13. It makes a difference.
He is awesome.
He's exactly the reason why I always say, like, when people say, oh, kickers don't matter, I'm like, they are so wrong. You get a good kicker, and they are getting you over 10 points a week, and they are actually the difference. So good for you. I like the call out for Brandon Aubrey.
He's also probably the only one that I think like a keep. Like like, if he has a bad week, I'm like, he'll bounce back.
I keep a lot, but we won't get stuck up on that. So my consistent of the week is Josh Downs, and I'm gonna say this only when Joe Flacco is at the helm. But with Josh Downs, he's played the last 3 games with Joe Flacco, 3 consecutive games of 9+ targets. And in this particular week, he had 7 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. He is producing with Joe Flacco. Love it,
man.
Yeah, definitely that surprise start with Flacco, too, because I really thought Richardson was still going to be starting.
I think he's going to keep getting injured, and it's just going to be lingering a little bit.
Man, Mike does not like Richardson. Man, moving on to my consistent of the week is David Montgomery. Monty, he's been awesome. It was his best week. So it's a little weird to choose him as a consistent, but he had 20.5 half PPR points. He's put up at least 14.5 every week. So it was right in what you would expect for him, right in his range. He's pretty awesome, and I expect it to continue. If you got him, I think he's a set it and forget it.
Definitely is. And ending with the trifecta, we have our fool of the week. And for me, it's got to be this Raiders team. I want to talk a little bit earlier when we were going over news, but I don't believe in Aiden O'Connell. I do believe in Gardner Minshew being a better option. Aiden O'Connell had 27 completions on 40 attempts for only 227 yards, touchdown, interception. Gardner Minshew did the same thing, and we actually saw our receivers do something. Trey Tucker, a guy that they really should have received more volume, didn't. The only person who saw anything was Alexander Madison, and Jacoby Myers got a little bit of it, and you're still not confident with any of it going forward. Dylan Laube, their rookie running back, fumbled the ball on his first NFL snap. Don't expect he's going to get you where. Could have been the answer, but no. I'm just not happy with Antonio Pierce's decision to bench Gardner. You gave him 5 chances, and 3 out of the 5 he did pretty decently and got kept this team competitive.
I agree, Ty. Raiders are in a weird situation where it's almost like the Panthers after weeks 1 and 2 bounce back and they're relevant fantasy wise with Andy Dalton, and now it's like the Raiders and Browns are becoming what the Panthers were weeks 1 and 2.
Yep.
They're becoming very just not relevant.
Yeah, I agree. But moving on to my fool of the week, I'm talking about a guy who somehow played, came back from injury. And by the way, this is why I never suggest playing somebody after they come back from injury. Always see what they're like that first week. I played Zach Moss, and I went against my own advice because I had to play him. And what did he net me? He netted me a playable player who was in the lineup, and he still got me 0 fantasy points. Why? He didn't touch the ball? No. He got 6 carries, 13 yards, a reception in a half PPR league that got me 2 points, and then fumbled the ball to get -2 points and bring back 0 fantasy points. He wasn't ready. It was Chase Brown the whole time. It was just, he's still hurt. So just, he killed me there.
Man. Yeah, that's it's good news for Chase Brown owners, but yeah, Zach Moss.
Maybe.
You don't expect duds like that from Zach Moss. But moving on to my fool of the week, another guy who I almost at a higher level don't expect duds. Dak Prescott. Man, I am by no means a Cowboys fan, and Sunday I was very happy. However, if you have Dak, you expect
You
a
are not.
minimum of a top 10 week every week. Like you expect that from him. He's reached that status. You probably drafted him like that if you got him, and definitely a bummer, especially when you have one of the best wide receivers in the game.
Yeah,
And
sorry.
You're also sad if you're a CD Lamb owner because he should be tearing apart this league, and he is not.
Yep.
You know what? CD is in the same exact spot or around the same spot as he was this time last year before he became wide receiver 1. They could still They still have the potential to blow up in the back half of the season. Do not put that past them. Dak did let you down this week. Hopefully it doesn't continue in the future. All right, we do have some honorable mentions this week, though, so I want to just run through them real quick. Evan Engram, again, came back from injury, and again, don't really like playing him, want to see what they got. Well, what Evan Engram got you, he got you 10 receptions on 10 targets and 102 yards. I'd say he's doing okay, and he's definitely a play going forward. A.J. Brown, again, back from injury, 6 for 9 targets, 116 yards, and a tutty. A.J. Brown, fantastic. Lock him in. Josh Downs, already discussed. Jamison Williams, 3 for 4, 76 yards and 1 touchdown. He's not going to be a volume machine, but he is going to get you points when he's in there because he's just so fast, just so explosive. He's looking great out there. Last but not least, I thought this would be someone Jordan wanted to talk about, but Tyrone Tracy, 17 carries for 50 yards, a touchdown, and 6 receptions for 57 yards. I actually got to say, he looked great out there.
He really did.
Yeah, he's going to be definitely more involved moving forward. I do think Devin Singletary is not going anywhere. He signed a 3-year contract, so he's
totally
expected.
Agree.
But it's going to be a running back by committee now.
They're gonna work Tracy into it. They can't ignore what they just saw.
Yeah, and he's like a 5th round pick. Like that's some awesome value.
I don't know. He's on the team now. That's all that matters.
All right, well, moving into our Week 6 recap, thanks for those honorable mentions and trifecta. We're going to start off just quickly with Thursday Night Football because we were broadcasting while the game was live, but just some things to know. The San Francisco offense did look like they were coming back into it. They did have some injuries with George Mason. Ayuk disappointed you. On the Seattle side, you still saw Kenneth Walker being the primary back, which is good for those Kenneth Walker owners. And the wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, JSN, DK Metcalf, they're all benefiting from Geno Smith. Maybe not week to week, but that's right now. If you play one of them, you can get fantasy points with all 3. But besides that, definitely a good matchup for a Thursday night game. Mike, tell us about the fabulous game in London.
The fabulous game in London. And honestly,
Governor.
It turned out to be a pretty decent game. Want to know why? Because Caleb Williams actually showed up, right? Caleb Williams, I gotta say, as much as I've given him a lot of beef on this show, he has shown continuous improvement the last 3 weeks or so, and he's really stepping into form. It sounds like he's actually getting a little bossy at practice too. So he's really taken that leadership role to heart, which is honestly not a bad thing. So Caleb's continued improvement had like 4 touchdowns, and like 1 interception. He had, I think, over 300 yards, just dominant. And guess what? Keenan Allen, like we already talked about, Cole Kmet, both of them had 2 touchdowns for themselves.
Yeah.
Swift also. DeAndre Swift also was awesome. Like another 20-point game for him, just looking great. I guess the only other thing I have to add to this, though, is Jacksonville. I mean, they are truly looking lost. They're looking broken here. Now, again, this is against a very good Chicago Bears defense.
Yeah.
But, man, they are not looking too good. Jordan, what do you want?
I was just going to ask you.
What
do you want?
I meant to say, what do you want to say? But that sounded bad.
I think this is 3 weeks in a row for DeAndre Swift with 19 points or more. Are we starting to believe
depending
on
your formats? Yeah.
Like, is he like you should not like a set it and forget it guy? Like, but is he like you probably like there's no reason to have him on your bench?
Well, I'll say this: he's right now the running back 9 on the season. I'd say he's a lock it in. And I will say this: I hate it because I traded him away for next to nothing because I'm like, oh, he got the one big game, and I just needed to get something out of him because he was on my bench anyway. Man, I wish I trade somebody else.
Man. All right, well, moving on to the next game here, we got Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. Now, it's funny I got this matchup because I gotta eat my words a little bit here. I was hesitant on whether or not to play Baker. New Orleans defense was 4th against quarterbacks in points against, and he freaking torched them.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Did he just? Okay, if you're Cleveland, how stupid do you feel right now? Baker looks amazing, okay, and he's just handing TDs out like he's Oprah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible what he's doing.
Godwin had a great game. Yeah, Godwin had an awesome game. Bucky Irving put up some really great points. The star was Sean Tucker coming out of nowhere, basically, and really, Mike Evans was the only one who didn't eat on Tampa Bay's side. That doesn't mean anything going forward. You're still starting him. But it was really exciting to see all the running back power that Tampa Bay has. Now, on the other side of the ball, Kamara didn't put up a top 10 week, but he was still top 20, and he put up 14.9 in half PPR leagues. That New Orleans just seems like another team that's headed towards being a mess. Olave, Shaheed, both getting hurt after Carr got hurt last week, and they've got Spencer Rattler running the show. They're borderline getting to kind of like we were saying with the Panthers, like maybe Chuba is the only person to start there. New Orleans might be there. Kamara might be the only one to start, but like he's the only one who showed up on Sunday.
I mean, Shaheed showed up. Shaheed had a good game still. It's just he's down for injury now, which is unfortunate. But
that's true.
I think he still had like 16 points in our league.
Yeah. Moving on to the Washington Commanders versus Baltimore Ravens. This is a really great game. You're still seeing the Washington Commanders continuing to show a huge powerhouse offense between Daniels, McLaurin. Eckler had a good game. Now Brian Robinson Jr. is hopefully back on the offense for the next week. But Henry, Flowers, Lamar Jackson, even Mark Andrews performed this week. We all thought he was done. And in general, this was a great game. Both offenses were aggressive. Both offenses did something. The defenses kept the game entertaining. Definitely a great game overall, fantasy-wise as well.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of fun watching this game, especially because I had so many players in it. I mean, watching Mark Andrews finally cross that touchdown zone, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And then Derrick Henry is just Derrick Henry. Like, there's a reason they call him King Henry. You got to just set it and forget it. Honestly, he's one of those 30-year-old running backs, 31-year-old running backs, maybe even, that I literally think he can keep going for 2-3 years. It's unreal. But Arizona, Green Bay. Okay, this is another game I would be very, very excited for, right? I would be very excited on a fantasy level. But Arizona just doesn't seem to have it, man. They are just gone. Marvin Harrison Jr. went out with a concussion, and it was early. He only had 2 targets, 0 catches, and then it was gone. So, like, now it's just a McBride show, right? I mean, McBride is a play. He's doing great. He's getting a lot of catches, but he's not getting a lot of touchdowns. I think he only has 1 on the season. And then you're talking about, like, what's going on with Murray? Murray's not doing well either. So Arizona's supposed to have a really hot offense. They're not really doing it. But someone else who does was the Green Bay Packers. Man, they have exposed this Arizona defense even more. Dobbs and Watson, they were the ones who led the receivers. Not even Reed. They had 3 touchdowns for themselves. Watson had 1 bomb, which was absolutely great to see. Good to have him back and back off the injury train again. Love is still being amazing because, again, he's throwing interceptions, but he's also throwing touchdowns. I mean, hey, he's got another like 25 points this week. So keep going with it. And Josh Jacobs is still a workhorse. Just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Good job, Mike. Now, moving on to the next matchup, we've got Indianapolis versus Tennessee. Now, we had kind of a late out with Anthony Richardson because it was trending that he was probably going to play. And then Jonathan Taylor also did not play. So that was a bummer. On Indianapolis' side, anyone who picked up an RB was disappointed because none of them really stepped up in the way Jonathan Taylor could. But the people who did step up were Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs. Both had awesome weeks. He played. Yeah, both had awesome weeks. And, Flacco, he did well to get the ball to them, but he didn't put up serviceable numbers to start him. And I kind of feel like that's going to be the case moving forward. Start the receivers if Flacco's in, but don't start him. On Tennessee side of the ball, Pollard. He's the only one who was worth it. Like we expected, he's putting RB2 numbers up pretty consistently. Everyone else kind of stunk. So,
yeah, it was I'm with you. It was an game. Yeah, but moving on to Houston Texans versus New England Patriots. Man, Houston really came out, even without Nico Collins. Stephon Diggs performed. You had CJ Stroud, who had I would say an average, pretty good week for you. Joe Mixon came back to show the league that he knows how to run the ball. You also had, for the first time, Dameon Pierce. Maybe he was just injured all of last season and we didn't know it, because he had only 8 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. Definitely looked like the Dameon Pierce from last year where you drafted him. And, between them, the New England team, it was great to see Drake May looking solid. The Houston defense isn't the best in the league, but they're definitely not the worst. So it was great to see him have over 240 yards passing, and also was able to scramble a little bit. You also had Pop Douglas and Kayshon Boutte, who were recipients of Drake May's performance. Douglas outperformed him with almost 100 yards and a receiving touchdown. But overall, I think in the beginning, the game got away from the Patriots, but it was great to see May take over that backfield. And maybe fantasy-wise, we might see these wide receivers for the Patriots finally be relevant.
May was actually, I think he was a top 12 quarterback last week. I mean, he put up over 20 points in our league. I mean, he actually looked really good out there, which was exciting to see for Patriots fans, not so much for Giants fans. But moving on to the next game, Cleveland versus Philadelphia. You have, just Cleveland, Philadelphia. I expected this to be a blowout. And if you go back to our last podcast, I did really think that Philadelphia was going to stomp them, and I was wrong. It actually was a really close game for most of it. Ford was relieved of the starting role, so he clearly wasn't doing it. Cooper was leading the receivers as usual, but he can't catch passes that are not catchable. So Deshaun Watson is just continuing to just get worse and decline in front of everybody, and he's still getting paid for it, which is kind of sad. But you know what? That's what happens when you sign a $230 or $40 million contract that's fully guaranteed. I don't think they're going to be lasting much longer. However, Jalen Hurts looked good. Didn't necessarily run a whole lot, but he did love having his receivers back. Like we already went over, A.J. Brown did great. Devonta Smith had another receiving touchdown as well. Really, on a personal level, I just want Jalen Hurts to get his rushing touchdowns back. He just hasn't gotten it, which has been a little upsetting. Fantasy-wise.
Right. Moving on to the next matchup, we got LA Chargers, who took on the Denver Broncos. Now, on the LA side of the ball, you really didn't have the quarterback or wide receivers put up any great numbers, which you kind of expect at this point, because to expect the running backs are going to get the yards. Dobbins and Kamani Vidal cooked this week, and I think maybe like Gus Edwards is going to be forgotten. With a little bit of injury, Vidal might be the RB2 in that committee.
Who's Gus Edwards?
Exactly. Well done. So, the other side of the ball, their defense is also playing pretty good. They're one of the defenses I would consider holding on to if you got. Now, same with the other side. Let's talk about Denver. Their defense continues to be awesome and the most fantasy relevant part of their team. That may be changing though soon. Bo Nix has 2 top 10 weeks in a row. And Cortland Sutton had his best week, it's not great. It was still wide receiver 2 numbers. You want more, but he's actually looking pretty good. In the running side of the game, they just cannot seem to get it together. Javonte, every week, it seems like, is he going to take a step forward and step up as RB1? And he just doesn't.
I think the running game is done, yeah.
I
think the running game is done in there.
I think they're going to take, they're at the point of, okay, we're taking the best RB in the draft next year. Do we have a choice?
Yep.
No.
I agree. Moving on to the Pittsburgh versus Las Vegas game. We talked about this a little bit. I just want to point out, Justin Fields is still looking good. And I think this is something that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers need to hear, considering Russell Wilson back. Justin Fields has thrown 1 interception
right
in the first 6 weeks.
I saw that today.
They're winning games because of not turning the ball over.
The boverall?
The boverall. I would just, I don't know if they need to be reminded of that, but just saying, Justin Fields, while he's not throwing the ball a ton and being that pass thrower that I think they want, he is not turning the ball over, and he's great on his feet. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, 59 yards. He got Najee Harris the ball. Man, 160 rushing yards and a touchdown. Najee blew up. George Pickens still wasn't really the benefactor, 53 passing yards, but I'm just so surprised if they end up benching him for Russell Wilson. I know they want to throw, but
they're
winning games.
Sad. It is sad, but at the same time, like, you can also think, like, they only have 10 touchdowns through 6 weeks too, right? Or at least he does. Both rushing and passing. So, like, that's probably the problem. I mean, their defense is the one that's really winning these games, not so much Justin Fields.
But he's not. To Tyler's point, no turn, like 1 interception. Right. That's huge.
Oh,
I do think Tomlin's making a mistake.
Okay, but let's also go back.
He's had a lot of fumbles.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fumbles though.
All right, true.
Okay.
Moving on to the Raiders.
Okay. All right.
All right. Touche, Mike. Touche. You are not wrong, but I haven't seen the fumbles, so maybe they weren't his fault.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Raiders side, Alexander Madison had an okay game, 33 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 5 receptions for 32 yards. So in those PPR and half PPR leagues, he might have done something for you. Other than that, the Raiders team offense was very underwhelming. Brock Bowers, the most receiving yards on this team with 71. Aiden O'Connell, we talked about him being a disappointment. Not much more to say.
Man. Yeah, unfortunately not much more to say, but like I gotta say, if there's one thing to take out of the Vegas Raiders, no Adams, Bowers is he's gonna be dominant the rest of the year. I think it's very
Let's take a leaf out of Jordan's book and say we'll talk about that next episode, Mike.
Okay, we could do that too. Fine. All right, I can take a hint. All right, moving on to Atlanta and Carolina.
Finally.
The running backs finally emerge in Atlanta. I will say Bijan Robinson, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Algier, even 1 touchdown. They both were producing. They really didn't even have to throw the ball that much, which was a little bit unfortunate for Kirk Cousins and his stats, but London still got his share. Honestly, Atlanta's offense looking great, exactly like you wanted them to. Carolina, still like Dalton. I still like Johnson. That combo's good. It's mostly good in PPR formats. Dalton's not going to be putting up very many offensive like powerhouse numbers, right? And he has been throwing in some interceptions as well. Chuba Hubbard has honestly looked great. He's still producing, but Brooks is around the corner, so be aware. Any owner of Hubbard, you gotta be aware of what you have there. It's an expiring asset.
Possibly. We'll see how good Brooks is. He is coming off an ACL tear. I think you
probably an expiring asset. What you do, but it's an expiring asset for playoffs, right?
Or a tradable asset. They got Miles Sanders on the long contract. Maybe trade away Chuba Hubbard.
If you're somebody who's...
Be a fool like me and trade for him.
Yeah. Yeah, he might help you get to playoffs. I don't think he's going to be good enough to help you win playoffs. So, now, we'll talk about that later. Next matchup, we had Detroit versus Dallas. My favorite game of the week because Detroit just dominated Dallas. They made them look stupid. Okay? Yeah. And this is why when Cowboy fans
Jordan,
are always...
Pause real quick. Can you tell us how you really feel?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. So
Cowboys look dumb.
You know how the Cowboys always go at the beginning of the year? Another year we get to beat up on the Giants. The Giants, because they re-signed Daniel Jones. We go, yeah, but your coach is still Mike McCarthy. Like, keep signing him because we love it. So Detroit just dominated Dallas. Goff, great game. Jameson Williams and St. Brown, both, putting up serviceable, awesome numbers. Gibbs and Monty, both putting awesome numbers. The play of the week, in my opinion, came from this game. When you had, what was it? Goff pitched it off to a running back. One of them pitched it off to St. Brown. He pitched it back to Goff, and boom, you hit Laporte for the 52-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that was
wild. Now, that's the good news. The bad news about Sam Laporta having 11.7 points is it all came on one play.
Thank you for touching on that because I want someone to touch on that.
That does bother me. I hope that this means Laporta's going to get more involved, especially as a Laporta owner. But, I don't think this is an automatic, yes, he's back. It came on one play.
Did you know that the Lions also added Allen Robinson to their roster?
I did not.
That was in the
I did not know that.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. But on the Dallas' side, they were crap, and let's not even waste time talking about them.
I agree. Talk about more crap. Talking about more crap. Let's talk about the Cincinnati versus Giants game. I think they summed it up there. It was crap.
It was crap, but they did have Joe Burrow actually learn how to use his legs. Come on, let's give him that.
That was pretty cool.
Joe Burrow actually had one play where he had every single person go all the way to the left side, and he ran 40-plus yards for a touchdown. I've never seen Joe Burrow do that. Good for him on that one. But I think that pretty much sums up the rest of the game. We already talked about Tyrone Tracy, so we can move on to Buffalo and the Jets, which, hey, at least Josh Allen looked back to form. It was actually a really good game. Not going to lie. It was a really good game, except for I didn't like how many penalties were there. It was just completely crap that way. And I'm also going to say this. If James Cook is going to be a last-minute call-out, please use your actual RB2 that's listed on the depth chart, because as a James Cook owner, I had the pivot, and all I needed was 5 points. So, of course, I pick up Ty Johnson, who's the RB2, who everybody says is so confident. And Ray Davis gets all of the work? What is that? That's what I feel like I'm going to sue the NFL for actually putting out a false depth chart. That is ridiculous.
No, just sue the Bills.
Outside of that, we'll go to the Bills. Okay. Wait, what? I just did the Bills.
I said just sue the Bills, not the NFL.
I'll sue the Bills. But the NFL has more money. Moving on to the Giants, though, or moving on to the Jets, though. Rodgers still looks fine. I am definitely pleading for you to drop Mike Williams because he really is lost in that offense. And now he's going to be like a wide receiver 4. Just honestly, he's not worth even stashing. Lazard, Wilson, Hall at least came back, which was great. And last but not least, again, going back to the front of this episode, they got Devontae going forward. Ooh. Hallelujah.
To piggyback a second off of Mike pointing out Mike Williams, Aaron Rodgers was quoted, I think, in his Pat McAfee show interview. Now, it is not direct wording, but he basically said, in terms of the interception, Mike Williams was not in the spot he was supposed to be, and it's important that we hold each other to a standard. And it was like, wow, could you have been more? Could you? No, it's very rare to hear a quarterback call out a specific player on his offense like that. So I don't think the ball's going anywhere near Mike Williams anymore.
No.
Especially it's going to Devontae, Conklin, Garrett Wilson.
He had like 2 or 3 and Alan Lazard. That's his main guy.
Lazard.
Great catch too. One of those, that bomb he made.
Oh my God! How did it get through?
I don't know.
Dude,
he didn't even jump for it. He barely jumped.
Nobody Hail Marys like Aaron Rodgers. Man,
well, that was our week 6 recap. Now, moving on to our Duel of the Fools for week 6, and we're just going to go through this real quickly for y'all. Baker Mayfield beat out Jalen Hurts. Alvin Kamara beat out Saquon Barkley. DeAndre Swift beat Josh Jacobs. Brian Robinson Jr. did not play, so we're discounting our second running back matchup. DJ Moore lost to Rashid Shaheed, even though Shaheed went out. CeeDee Lamb did perform better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Drake London outperformed Brian Robinson Jr., which I think was really disappointing for everyone. We all expected a lot more from Brian Thomas Jr.
No, I disagree. I was on there stating it's against Chicago, and I wanted to see how he looked against them.
That's true. And Trey McBride outperformed Jake Ferguson, who had a very underwhelming game, but the entire Dallas Cowboys did. Leaving the results, Jordan won again. That's what, 4 in a row for Jordan,
I think, right?
4.
Oh, 4. Oh, snap. Yeah.
So Jordan had 4 right, Mike had 3 right, and I only had 2. My worst week of the 2024-25 season. Leaving weeks 1, Jordan's in the lead with 4. Mike and I are tied in second with 2. Jordan's in the lead with correct guesses at 22. I have 21, and Mike is in last with 18. But that is the Duel of the Fool results. Thank you all for joining. That was our episode 38, and we'll see you later this week for episode 39, where we're going to talk about our week 7 preview. Can't believe we're already in week 7, almost halfway there, guys.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Have a great night and see you later this week, fools. Bye.